What's up guys, it's Tealus here. I'm back inside Skyhold for part 2 of this 2-video series looking at Arms Warrior and what Arms Warrior is bringing to the table in World of Warcraft Legion. In the first video we looked at the abilities and artifact weapon traits for an Arms Warrior. In this video we'll be looking at the PvP and PvE talents. Now I know I talked about how it was kind of irritating how Arms Warrior has really felt kind of dry and gutted in World of Warcraft Legion. I do say that I do say, I will say that there are a lot of there are a lot of abilities I think in the talent tree that will at least round it out a little bit and make things more interesting as an Arms Warrior, specifically if you are a PvEer and you want something that's a little bit more complex. So with that being said, I do want to go into the PvE talent tree. However, I made a mistake in the previous video. Every time I go into these videos, I have to go through my spell book and make sure that I do not have a talent that replaces something, and I didn't do that. And the talent that replaced was actually Bladestorm. Bladestorm is now baseline, so I don't feel necessarily too bad about missing this because Bladestorm used to be a talent, and now it's not going to be a talent anymore. It's going to be an actual ability that you have that you can use. It used to be a talent in World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor, and so now it is a baseline ability, so it kind of crosses over between the ability section and the talents video. So let me go ahead and show this to you because Bladestorm has been upgraded in how it looks, its physical, the sound effects, and its actual visual effects. So it looks really awesome. So I want to show this to you so you can see it, and then we'll get into the PvE and PvP talent trees. So there's the new Bladestorm. Pretty cool. As you can see there, I'm attacking in the middle of it. So it is something that it strikes all targets. I could be wrong because I have not played Warrior in a while, but Bladestorm usually takes you, like, if you lose control of your actual abilities. You actually cannot attack at all during that. That is changed with this Bladestorm. You can now actually use abilities. You can use defensive abilities, but you cannot use offensive abilities. But your auto attack does seem to still be on. We'll test that again one more time when it actually comes up. But until that time, let's go ahead and start going through the talent tree. So the first talent here is going to be Dauntless, which is your abilities cost 20% less rage. Very simple. If you have this on, which I originally had on when I was testing rage on this character, your rage, it just never drops. You always have, like, it seems a limitless rage because it just never drops. I mean, your Mortal Strike drops down to 16 rage, your slams down to 12 rage. I mean, it just makes it really difficult to actually lose your rage. Right now I'm sitting at near top end of my rage, and what I will do is after Colossus Smash, I'm going to use Whirlwind, which is the highest amount of rage that I can possibly use. And I'm going to try and just burn this down as much as possible, and it's taking forever just to do this. So it just gives you an idea of how much you can actually do. Now do remember, 20% less rage means you have less chance for Colossus Smash to actually reactivate, which kind of makes me think that it's possible that PvEers might not like this. I'm not quite sure about that though. Let's go ahead and test the Bladestorm thing one more time. As you can see, I cannot use any of my, I actually couldn't use any of my abilities, so it does lock me out of everything. It says in the combat, in the actual log there, that I have access to my defensive abilities, but that is not what I am noticing right here. I'm not able to use something like Commanding Shout, which I would consider a defensive ability. It's possible that Taunt is still active. That's the way it is in the old tooltip, so it may be just referring to those abilities, and that's about it. So, with that, let's go ahead and look at the next ability here. We have Overpower. Good old Overpower. Overpowers the enemy. It works the same way. I'm just going to say that. It works the same way. So, basically you go in there and then you'll get Overpower procs as you start attacking your target. You saw me actually using them in the initial video. There you can see an Overpower proc right here. And then there you go. I kind of shove myself into them just like you do with the charge. It's pretty cool. I did mention in the previous video that Sweeping Strikes would be making its return in the PvE talent tree, and it does. And it's a little bit different. It's not just like all your abilities. It specifically targets Mortal Strike and Execute, hit a second nearby target. Honestly, I do not see any PvPers taking this, and I only see PvEers taking this when there is a boss that is like maybe like splits into 3 beings or 2 beings. This is really the only time I see this, something like this being taken. Otherwise, I would expect something like Overpower and Dauntless to easily be the 2 talents taken in this tier. In the level 30 tier, we have Shockwave. This functions exactly as it does on live, so really no changes there. Stormbolt, I believe it functions exactly the same. However, the quadruple damage from a target that cannot be stunned is no longer there. So this has really gone down as a PvE option. And then last, we have Double Time. It's been changed a little bit. Increases the maximum charges of charge by 1. So that should be familiar to how it was before. However, it reduces its cooldown by 3 seconds. So it still has. So before, it said you only get rage. You only get. I'm going to use double time right here. Before, it said you only get rage once every 12 seconds. That's not going to be the case here. I'm going to be able to use it twice and get rage off of both of them. So that's no longer a case. And now you can see I built up my rage to 95 extremely quickly. And considering how hard it is to bring your rage down, it's pretty awesome to have. The second thing is that you can use it twice in a row, and you use that a 20-second recharge time. However, this time you also have that reduction in its cooldown, so it's a 17-second recharge per one instead of 20. So it's been buffed overall, and it competes with Storm Bolt, and Shockwave. So there's a little bit of a difference there from what it is on live. In our 45 tier, we have another kind of group of interesting talents. I love, they've really gone away from the, like, okay, this tier is going to be all about your charge ability. You know, that's what the old 15 tier was, and then 30 was all about healing. They got rid of that trash. It's now just interesting choices across the board. You're going to be able to choose on playstyle. Sure, you'll always be able to go online and be like, okay, what's the best option for Arms Warrior for PvE DPS? But if you really want to, you can choose your own playstyle. So in this 45 tier, we have Fervor of Battle. Whirlwind deals 40% increased damage to your primary target. So I already said that Whirlwind's damage has been increased significantly in this in Legion, so this makes it even more powerful. 85,000 physical damage. Compare that to something like Slam, which is at 64,000 damage. It is 10 rage more. Mortal Strike, 11 rage. That will be sorry, Mortal Strike is actually supposed to be 20 rage. It deals 124,000. So, I mean, it's kind of in between there. It's an option. It's mostly probably, it's increased damage to your primary target. So, I don't know. This is something that Theory Crafters are going to have to test and see if it actually works. How good it is. Your next option here is Rend. Good old Rend. People love Rend. It's now back as a talent. So you have it there. You swipe across, and then you have your bleed dot. So if you really want old school Arms Warrior, you spec into Overpower, you spec into Rend, and you have Rend, Overpower, Charges, Colossal Smash, and then Mortal Strikes and Slams. It's your old school Warrior. So that's really cool. So if you were a big fan of that, you can now do that again. And actually, it really fills out the rotation more and makes it feel much better than if it were just the Mortal Strike Colossus Strike Slam combination that I was kind of lamenting and irritated with before. The last one here is going to be Avatar. Avatar, to my knowledge, has not changed at all. I mean, it's brought all the way down from the 90 tier, which is really awesome. But it still has that 20-second uptime, causing you to deal 20% increased damage. And, you know, it's Avatar. Avatar is Avatar. In the 60 tier, we have some really interesting choices here. So here's where your stances come into play. You can bring back your stance switching, which is just an icon now. You switch into defensive stance, and there you go. You're gonna look different, but basically still be the same. And it basically just allows you to have it allows you to reduce all damage taken by 20%. And all damage you deal by 10%. And it lasts until cancel. It lasts until you decide to switch out of your defensive stance, which is the icon for old battle stance. So there you go. So a little bit of old stancing coming back. If you'd like to talent into it, you are welcome to. Second option here is going to be Bounding Stride. Reduces the cooldown of Heroic Leap for 15 seconds, and Heroic Leap now increases your run speed by 70% for 3 seconds. So I mean, if I were to use this here, go ahead and test it out for you guys. I could jump across, and then I had that movement speed increase. Remember that this would basically bring it down to a 30-second cooldown, which is what it is on live. Remember that the cooldown has been increased on this. But the big thing is that the range on this is now 40 yards, baseline. So that's actually pretty good. If you're trying to escape battle or get into battle, it can be pretty useful. However, I think old school Second Wind is going to win. Second Wind restores 7% health every 1 second while you have not taken damage for 5 seconds. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go Tangle with Mr. Sparring Partner over here. Make sure I don't kill myself. I've done that before. Here, I'm going to do the lesser one. Cause, no, we're gonna go all the way. Let's go. Ouch! That hurt. Jeez. Oh, I don't even have Second Wind activated. That's no good. That's no good. Get me out of combat so I get into Second Wind. Okay, now I have Second Wind. You can see 7%, 7%, 7%, 7. That is awesome. So it is like it's functioning like Muradin's Second Wind in Heroes of the Storm. I mean, you get out of combat for 5 seconds and you heal up a ton. So if you want to Heroic Leap out of there, run away when things get really dicey in PvP. And once you get out of there, once you get out of combat for a little bit, you can start getting that Second Wind. Obviously, you're going to be locked into combat in a PvE situation, so this is kind of useless. I see PvEers really taking the stance dancing, and then PvPers will kind of have to decide between Bounding Stride and Second Wind, and honestly, I think it's obviously going to be Second Wind. I think Bounding Stride is going to be the one talent that's kind of left out. In the 75 tier, this is actually the one tier I'm actually selecting an ability, we have In for the Kill. Mortal Strike generates 40 rage when used against targets that are below 20% health. So you have kind of like another kind of execute type option. Being able to use Mortal Strike and then execute on targets below 20% health is pretty awesome. Definitely something that's useful for PvE. Do remember that execute will consume an extra 30 additional rage. Now, one thing about Dauntless that I need to make clear is that when Dauntless is active, it also means that you can only consume an additional 24% additional rage, as opposed to 30 additional rage. Execute now costs 8 rage instead of 10 rage, so it does reduce the amount of additional rage that you consume. So that's something you need to watch out for, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think Dauntless will be... I could be wrong, because that's less rage that you have to actually consume to get the extra damage. So overall, it's good, but I'm just unsure. It's really going to be up to the PvEers to be like, okay, or the theory crafters to be like, okay, guys, this is the best option here. So, you can get that In for the Kill, which will work well with Execute when you're in Execute range in PvE. I don't know how popular it would be in PvP, though. You have Mortal Combo. Mortal Strike now has a maximum of 2 charges. I like this. Do you know that... it reduces the effectiveness of healing for 10 seconds, so you should always be able to get a Mortal Strike on a target. And 2 kind of seems like overkill for Mortal Strike, but remember Mortal Strike hits for a lot, 109,000 versus slams 56,000. So having 2 on it seems pretty powerful. And considering that Colossus Smash, basically it only lasts for 8 seconds, if you're trying to get a lot of burst damage off from Colossus Smash, this will allow you to get 3 Mortal Strikes off as opposed to just 2 in that period in which Colossus Smash increases the damage against the target. So that's something to think about. The last option here is going to be Focus Rage. You focus your rage on your next Mortal Strike, increasing its damage by 50%, stacking up to 3 times, unaffected by the global cooldown. So I'm going to go ahead and click this here so you can see what we can do here with this. It is 15 rage cost, so let's just go ahead and build up rage, because I can build up rage crazy these days. And I have a rage all the way up, so I can use it once, use it twice, use it 3 times, and then Mortal Strike right there. And the damage will come off. Now this is just a 1.4 second cooldown, so this is a really interesting ability to take. If you have enough rage, so if you've just built up a ton of rage, you can use it with Mortal Strike to see how much damage you get. In a PvE rotation, this could be very interesting. You could end up spending more time using Focus Rage to build up your Mortal Strike damage when it actually comes through, and less slam spamming. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. This could be a PvE option. In for the Kill could be a PvE option. Mortal Combo I see more as just a PvP option because it's more burst damage at a certain amount of time. However, I could be wrong. Maybe having that double will end up being better. We'll see how it works out. In the 90 tier, we have a Deadly Calm. Your Battle Cry also reduces the rage cost of your abilities by 100% for this duration. Battle Cry is that new ability, and it lasts for 5 seconds, so you have 5 seconds of rage-free, basically, killing. So that's pretty cool. You have Trauma. Slam and Whirlwind now cause the target to bleed for 20% additional damage over 6 seconds. Multiple uses accumulate increased damage. Now, this, if you're going more of the Slam build, you haven't taken Overpowered, okay? You've taken something like Dauntless. And then on top of that, you've taken you're not taking Rend, you're taking something like Avatar. Being able to get your rage up, and then you end up having to do a lot of slams. This is going to work to your benefit because you're going to be able to put a lot of trauma on this guy, and he's going to be taking a lot of damage because of it. And it keeps refreshing, and it's going to deal a lot of damage over time. So this will be a Theory Crafter thing once again to see how well it works against these other ones. But I honestly, if you're going to end up using Slam a lot, this is the option that I would go for. The last option here is Titanic Might. It increases the duration of Colossus Smash by 16 seconds, but reduces its effectiveness by 50%. Once again, another Theory Crafter ability that people are just going to have to like sit there and be like, okay, this actually statistically does more damage than this. However, in a PvP situation, Burst is king, and you're losing your Burst here with Titanic Might, so I really don't see PvPers taking this. If PvPers go the Slam route, I see them taking Trauma. If not, I see them taking Deadly Calm. I just don't see them taking Titanic Might. In the 100 tier, we have Anger Management. Every 10 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown on Battle Cry by 1 second. So if I go ahead and use this and rush in here, you'll see that I'll begin to very slowly lose the cooldown on my Battle Cry will go down. So that's something to take note of. It doesn't seem like it does very much, but it does, accumulate over time. And, as such, it's a little bit different from the old anger management. I mean, the old anger management applied to so many different abilities. This one only applies to, your Battle Cry, which could possibly be really disappointing for people. Maybe they don't like that. I don't know. It's going to be up to you to decide if you really feel like it's worth it. It felt like it was worth a whole lot more in the old Warlords of Draenor. In this version, maybe not so much. Here in the center, we have Opportunity Strikes. Your melee abilities have a 60% chance, based on the target's missing health, to trigger an extra attack that deals 43,000 physical damage. Let me see if I can just get this to go ahead and work. We'll see if it actually shows up on here with, I don't know if it'll cause if it'll call it a Opportunity Strikes or something along those lines. It says trigger an extra attack that deals a certain amount of damage, and it's activated by your melee abilities. So let's go ahead and just use Slam here and see if we can get it to proc right there. Trauma's procking, but I'm not getting a proc from the Opportunity, so I'm not quite sure how to get it to proc or where it actually shows up in the feed, but I'm sure that it's probably there. If not, it is a bug fix and it will go through. The last option here is going to be Ravager. This is what I had active, and it actually replaces Bladestorm. So they actually, when I did Fury Warriors, they actually had Bladestorm in the talent tree and so forth for both Arms and Fury, and then they took it out after that Fury Warrior video, and I just didn't notice that it was an actual something that replaces it. Ravager comes back essentially as it did on live servers, except for it deals a whole lot more damage. So to replace the fact that it actually does take up Bladestorm, it just does a lot more damage now over time. However, in a PvP setting, in a PvE setting, this is great, okay? No doubt about it. And this is something that you can use in PvE because, if the target doesn't move very much, this can be very potent. And I would not surprise me if this is the most popular option to use in PvE. 1 minute cooldown, so I mean the cooldown's reduced by zero point 0.5 by 30 seconds compared to a normal Blade Storm, which is a 1.5 minute cooldown. You're able to chuck it out there. You're able to still use your regular abilities, and it does tons of damage. So I really see this being the PvE option, though it depends on how anger management and opportunity strikes work out. And then for PvP, I don't expect Ravager. I'm not a real big fan of AoE ground targeted abilities in PvP because, everyone's mobile in PvP for the most part. If anything, stuff like that ends up being like a zone clearer. You already have Blade Storm baseline, so why would you give up Blade Storm for an AoE ground targeted that would maybe get the first 2 ticks of damage off and deal some decent damage, but for the rest of them wouldn't be worth it. So I would expect anger management probably to be the option in PvP, though opportunity strikes could also be an option there. So, with that, let's go ahead and look at the honor talents for an arms warrior. Basically, the way honor is going to work in World of Warcraft Legion is you'll start at level 1, you'll work your way up to level 50. When you work your way up to level 50, you have the option of prestige and start back over at level 1 and get like a nice little cosmetic item, something to wear, or even mounts, etc. So the reason you might not want to prestige is when you start at level 1, you're only going to have Gladiator's Medallion, and then you'll work your way down to Wrecking Crew, and then that's at level 10, and then at level 13 you start with Adaptation and go all the way down, and then the very last ability you will get is in the third row, Sharpened Blade at like level 46, and then you'll hit to 50 and you'll decide like, hey, do I really want to restart all of my talents again and prestige, or do I just want to keep it here and just deal with it? So that's going to be like a decision up to you. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the first tier. This is all about your Honorable Medallion. Your Honorable Medallion is like the heirloom trinket that you get in the when you first enter a battleground. It's a 3-minute cooldown trinket. So it's all 3 of these talents deal with it. Every single spec in the game has this as their first 3 PvP talents. Your first option is the Gladiator's Medallion, which is basically reduces it to a 2-minute cooldown. So you have a 2-minute trinket. That's how it is basically on live. Everyone with their 2-minute trinket. Your second option is Adaptation. All loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your Honorable Medallion spell, but only cause it to incur a 60-second cooldown. This is my personal favorite for PvP. I say that every time. For DPS. However, as I was playing a Havoc Demon Hunter in PvP earlier, maybe not for squishy PvP. It'll depend on whether or not you really feel you need Gladiator's Medallion or not. Because it was really frustrating because Adaptation was down and it was blown on something else that it shouldn't have been, and then I got stuck in like a Mage's Ice Nova or Frost Nova, and I just sat there with all my buddies because we didn't have our trinkets up, so it really stunk. So do know that if you activate your Honorable Medallion, because this does not replace your Honorable Medallion, it will cause Adaptation to go on a 3-minute cooldown, so do take note of that. So that's actually pretty cool. Relentless, pretty cool ability. However, I only see it being used for tanks. It replaces your Honorable Medallion, and the duration of incoming crowd control effects is reduced by 25%. It's really only something that I see for tanks if basically they're trying to... it's any type of spec in which you're able to survive long enough. That's the only time I would see this being used. In the second tier, we have the melee tier, melee DPS tier. We have hardiness. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. You have reinforced armor, health increased by 10%. You have sparring. Physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. So you basically pick your choice there on your kind of defensive ability. For being a melee DPS in PvP. In the third row, we have, this is actually the execute little tier. We have Death Row. You can now use executes at or below 25% health, so you have a little bit more health range to use execute. Honestly, unless execute can for sure really just knock someone out at 25% health, I'm not a big fan of this. Though, if you can get a lot of rage regeneration up really quickly, it could be really powerful. There's Blood Hunt. When within 10 yards of enemies at execute range, your movement speed is increased by 15% and all snares are suppressed for at least 5 seconds. This is awesome. I love this ability, and this is probably one of my... I definitely like it better than Death Row, let's just say that. The last option here is Death Sentence. Execute now has a 15-yard range, causing you to charge to targets when used. Blood Hunt and Death Sentence are very much the same. This gives you incredible sticking power to a target once they're in execute range, which is pretty cool. The only issue with Blood Hunt is that you have to actually be within 10 yards of enemies within execute range, which makes it kind of difficult. So that could be irritating, but this allowing you to charge targets is pretty cool too. So it's an option. I do know that like you could use execute to charge to a target 15-yard range, which is bigger than the 10-yard range, and then you can snare them, so that's, you know, kind of counters out if you are snared as well. So probably Death Sentence would be the best option here, but it's really personal preference, up to you. In the fourth tier, we have Rage Machine. Non-periodic attacks against you generate 5 rage. Considering how easy it's been for me to generate rage against just a training target dummy, this may not be the greatest, but I could be wrong. It could be different. There's Spell Reflection. So here's where Spell Reflection is. You can raise your shield, reflecting all spells cast on you. Lasts 3 seconds. And it's a 25-second cooldown. I can't remember what the cooldown was on live, but I do believe that's way better. And then the last option here is Ready for Battle. Rage gained from charge increased by 15. With 2 charges, if you decide to have it, that gives you 70 rage from charges off of 2 charges you have if you decide to go with the double time. That's pretty awesome. There's really no denying that, and to be honest, that's probably my favorite option in this tier. In the 5th tier, we have Intercept. Yes, even Arms Warriors can get Intercept. It actually replaces your charge, and it basically just allows you, your charge runs essentially the same. Okay? But it now also gives you the option to go to an ally and allow you to intercept all melee and ranged attacks against them within 10 seconds. Intercept will intercept all melee and ranged attacks against them within 10 seconds while the target remains within 10 yards. It's kind of a confusing tooltip, but it basically is saying intercept will intercept all melee and ranged attacks against them for 10 seconds as long as the target remains within 10 yards. I think that's a better way of wording that right there. So, for the next 10 seconds, as long as that target remains within 10 yards, you will intercept those abilities. So it's a nice team play there. There's Shadow of the Colossus. Charge resets the cooldown on your Colossus Smash. This is huge, considering that Colossus Smash is a 45-second cooldown, and you can get a charge up every 8.5 seconds. This is awesome. With double time, you have to take this. Think about it. Charge up every 8.5 seconds. You have 100% uptime on Colossus Smash. To me, this is almost an absolute must-take talent for you to be effective, because the 45-second cooldown on Colossus Smash is absolutely devastating in PvP. Going from 20 seconds to 45 seconds and having so much of your damage in that burst window is absolutely devastating, and it just makes this talent so important to have, in my opinion. The last option here is Pain Train. Reduces the cooldown of Battle Cry by 15 seconds, and Battle Cry now also affects all nearby allies within 10 yards. So this is a nice team buff effect. Another team play effect kind of with Intercept, but if you're talking about whether or not your own personal damage is going to be top-notch and really powerful, you have to go with Shadow of the Colossus. In the last tier, we have Wrecking Crew. Is a passive. Mortal Strike's effect now also is applied to all nearby enemies within 8 yards of the target. This can be pretty potent, considering that the Mortal Strike's effect is the reduction in healing. This is going to be really important in Legion. These old reducing the effectiveness in healing. I know as a hunter, I was going out there and I was using, I think it was Viper Sting. And it was very, very potent. It shut down healers pretty well. So being able to AoE do that, I mean, it all depends on whether or not the targets are in range, but it's definitely a good option. There's Echo Slam. Colossus Smash deals an additional 10% of the target's total health and damage 2.5 seconds later. Damage done ignores all armor. Just pair this with Shadow of the Colossus, and then you're a total beast. That's awesome. The last one here is Sharpened Blade. 45-second cooldown. When activated, your next Mortal Strike will do a 50% increased damage and reduce healing taken by 70% for 4 seconds. That is really strong. I don't know what is the reduced healing effectiveness on a target when you actually use Mortal Strike. I don't know what the actual number is. How much they're actually reduced. We'll go ahead and maybe I can see it right here. It'll actually show in the debuff. It doesn't show. Mortal wounds healing effects reduced by 25%. So 25% is what it normally is, and then this would be 70%, which is pretty brutal. That's a 45-second cooldown. Oh my gosh, it's going to be such a tough decision between Sharpened Blade and Echo Slam on which one I want to use. Against healers, I mean, if I'm going solo, I would say definitely Echo Slam. If I'm in a team, probably Sharpened Blades. In a rated battleground setting, or maybe even an arena setting, I would probably go Sharpened Blades, but Echo Slam is amazing if you're going it alone, or you're just messing around with some friends in like a random battleground. I'd probably go Echo Slam as well. So there's some interesting options, and honestly there's some interesting options in all of the talent trees, which makes Arms Warrior definitely more interesting and fun than what its baseline gives us. So thankfully the talent tree saves Arms Warrior from being really kind of an irritating spec with really not much in it. It really saves us from that, so that's pretty great. I'm really glad about that. There's interesting options for both PvE and PvP. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's everything there is for Arms Warrior. The last spec available is going to be Prot, and I have a feeling that I'm going to be waiting on tanks for the very end. I do want to get all of these videos out before patch 7.0 drops, but I will probably be going through DPS specs before I even get to the tanks, because tanks are just so broken, overpowered right now, and Blizzard has to go in and do their fixes, and I'm always worried about how major they are. But that's everything for Arms Warrior PvE and PvP talents. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Cheer us out.